Another year has dawned, and with it we can start digging into the games destined for the future, both near and far, by playing unfinished snippets of each and judging them harshly based upon up to several minutes of actual gameplay. The Steam Next Fest serves as an unhindered fire hose, blasting every participant in the upper torso with hundreds of games to try, and while I didn't get to play them all, here are the best games I played from the first Next Fest of 2023. I began my adventure by flying out the gate and slashing my way down an asphalt-covered fantasy with Driftwood. Here you'll take on the role of a sloth that for some reason possesses no qualities of a sloth, but does enjoy skateboarding down mountain roads at breakneck speeds, preferably without breaking any actual necks. Drift your way around tight turns for extra points, or skim close to cars and through tight gaps also for extra points. The only thing that won't give you extra points is slamming into things, which if you're like me, you'll do just enough to question if you still have proper control over your hands. You can rest most of your hands, save for one finger, by checking out the single button magic of Super 56. This game will take you into the depths of hell on a pleasant commuter train ride to a hell exchange program where you'll meet some kind monsters who want you to play a brand new game. The game is actually several games that you'll WarioWare your way through, but only by pressing the A button. Whether it's driving a cart, shooting a bow, playing Doom, or typing the letter A 100 times, you'll be pressing A and only A for any and all actions arranged or achieved. If you'd like to give your finger a rest and find some new ways to poke your A, you might want to check out the weird upcoming BDSM Mario Maker with Meet Your Maker. Take on the role of this giant helmet-wearing, possibly human person who lives in a post-apocalyptic world and has the task of collecting genetic samples from the clutches of other people's bases to bring back to your own, pleasing this strange tank creature. Each base has a creepy, panting, crawling fetish monster traveling back and forth to and from that sweet genetic cache. But if you follow it in and take your first steps toward your goal, you'll soon be greeted by giant impaling spikes, deadly bolts, slightly warm flamethrowers, and all sorts of instant death fun that wants to replace the living parts of your body with dead ones. If you do manage to make it past all of these traps and horribly mutated guards, you can return to your base with your various resources and level up these chair people who can unlock buffs and new gear and make it ever so slightly less likely you'll spend your last moments counting how many spikes are in your lungs. Once you've made some progress though, you can build your own base of sadistic joy filled with every ingenious method of murder you can fathom, and then revisit it from time to time to sweep up the entrails and collect some free loot from the murdered intruders. For some loot covered in slightly fewer internal organs but acquired just as violently, you'll want to take a step into the roguelike RPG Bleak Sword DX. This former mobile exclusive game published by Devolver Digital takes that familiar hack/parry and dodge roll forever design and squeezes it into minimalist black and white floating square levels with just enough detail to still look like cool shit is happening. That same minimalism applies to the intro cutscenes though, where no matter how far back you move from your monitor, you still won't know what these 12 wiggling pixels are supposed to represent. You might find that giant pixels are more appealing if they're 3D, so let's check out the voxel design open world detective game Shadows of Doubt. Here you'll venture out into the world as a detective trying to make a name for himself and earn enough money to not live in the streets, sort of like reality, but this is a video game. You'll kick off your investigation just like a real detective, with a mysterious phone call and a note shoved under your door. Then you're off to a now antiquated adventure of looking into a phone book to figure out who the hell anyone is and where they live. After venturing out into this small pocket of a large city with nearly every door, room, and business accessible, you'll commit an absolutely ridiculous amount of time looking through apartments, offices, and air vents searching for clues and fingerprints to track down murderers and murder-adjacent individuals of interest. You'll have to use tools like lockpicks and cameras to solve crimes and finish the task with all of the excitement of filling out a form and waiting for your paycheck. A paycheck you can use to design and decorate your brand new shitty apartment. If you'd like to design a nice apartment decoration of your own, you might want to check out the tiny city building card game Cardboard Town. This diorama-constrained environment has you taking on the role of mayor of a glorified board game that uses the ever-present mechanic of randomized cards to shape your construction capabilities. Each card will give you buildings that give and take away from your tiny pile of resource icons, and it's your task to balance this delicate system at the whim of the always popular random chance of card games. But if you suck and take your resources into the negative for too long or get too many of these red alert icons, your diorama will stop letting you build it and you won't even get to finish your tabletop cookie. Yet if you can balance the budget and get lucky enough to not run out of roads, you'll cover this entire board with a tiny papercraft city for you to quietly reflect on in your free time. But where we're going, we do need roads because it's time to shift into 5th gear and risk tachycardia with the first-person shooter action platformer Meat Grinder. For those of you that remember the joy of the chaotic platforming on Cluster Truck, someone said, what if we added guns, people with guns, and even more explosions to this experience? And then they did. But in order to stay alive, you also have to keep moving and shooting to maintain your heart rate at typically dead levels, just like Jason Statham and Crank, but without even the desire for logical reasoning at any point. All while jumping, air dashing, and grapple hooking between vehicles and blasting enemies with an ever-increasing variety of guns and the always reliable power kick. Continuing with the high-octane metal rampaging experience, but from a more comfortable perspective, the next title up is the follow-up to one of the most metal games ever made, Valfaris Mechatherion. Unlike its Contra-styled predecessor, this time we're taking this Iron Maiden album cover come to life into the sky with a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up that eliminates the platforming and trades it out for swarms of deadly enemies coming to murder you in an extremely aggressive single-file line. However, you do still have all of the excessively violent ranged and melee weapons you can upgrade to be even more violent as you progress through this alien 2.5D world and face off against giant terrifying monster bosses. Being terrified doesn't always require giant sadistic creatures though, sometimes all it needs is some creepy atmosphere and the looming unanswered question of what the fuck is going on, which is a question you can continue asking in perpetuity with Bionic Bay. After unlocking some mystical force and a giant egg, your incredibly tiny protagonist will be chucked into a dark, creepy atmospheric world of pipes, lasers, and unnatural machinery. Soon you'll get in touch with one of those lasers that jackhammers your body with the new power of being able to move fast as hell and jump great distances. After using this capability to traverse an additional set of creepy-ass obstacles, you'll gain the ability to put a blinking dot on objects and swap places with them instantaneously to move through an even deadlier set of creepy-ass obstacles. This action platformer will have you dying in a variety of sometimes hilariously painful ways, but you'll always have a Super Meat Boy-esque quick respawn to try it all again with perhaps slightly less hilarious outcomes. If you'd like to have your action platforming with a little less instant death and a little more backtracking, the upcoming steampunk Metroidvania Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder might be your best choice. With all of the majesty that can be garnered from pixelated black and white cutscenes, you'll learn the weird past of this world as you take on the role of an average nobody protagonist who stumbles into some past futuristic tech that gives her the incredible power of getting better at things. Now as you use your intrinsic abilities of sword slashing and shooting a gun with one bullet, you'll gain ability points to traverse this massive web of enhancements. You'll also be able to complete side missions and collect items and consumables to make your fight against this onslaught of robots a little less painful, all while navigating and re-navigating that classic mapped web of locked doors and platforming perils. Another classic game design featured in an upcoming game will take you down the familiar corridors of the rail shooter Whisker Squadron Survivor. This may be a simple game of shooting things and dodging things in a spaceship while being an anthropomorphic animal and having other anthropomorphic animals talk to you, but it's not Star Fox. But what it is pretty fun. And if you like fun and also city builders about Vikings trying to survive in the cosmos while being chased by a giant cloud, then you need to check out Roots of Yggdrasil. This roguelike may look like another randomized card-based game, and those are in fact cards, but the strategy is all about building the right buildings in the right places right next to the right things in order to maximize your resources and make these trees happy. That's right, this is a game about pleasing the trees, and as you do, you'll unlock a portal to make it to the next land and upgrade your building capabilities, or capabilities as I've decided to call them. You can also unlock the stars themselves to aid you in this process and achieve your arboristic goals before your time runs out and this angry cloud kills everyone in your quaint little town. Some towns have more perils than clouds though, like being built on the side of a cliff. So if you want to figure out how to escape this situation, you'll need to dive into Wall World. Imagine, if you will, Dome Keeper, except now turn it 90 degrees. This is Wall World. However, instead of having a stationary dome, your dome has legs it can use to crawl up this perpetual vertical wall, seeking new places to penetrate and thrust into with your mining laser and shiny rock vacuum. As you climb, you'll discover new holes to dig and backgrounds to admire while defending your mechanical spider with an orbiting machine gun and homing missiles against a familiar blend of flying and terrestrial creepy monster things that definitively do not like you. But one thing I do like is the Steam Next Fest. While all of these included games were a collection of the best I played, there were certainly dozens if not hundreds of indie games that may have been even better. Even though it's already over, if you enjoy indie and small developer games and want to see what's out there, this is a great opportunity to check out my choices and many of the others available. And as always, if you'd like to see more hot takes, warm satire, and tepid commentary about video games, make sure to like this video and check out my other abbreviated reviews.